Welcome back. It's time for Silver and Black today, the post-game edition. The Raiders beat the Giants 30-6 out at Allegiant Stadium. Wow, the team is under new management. Could you tell? Antonio Pierce gets his first win as the Raiders interim coach. Aiden O'Connell gets his first win as a starter for the Raiders in this big win. And great to be with you guys. Great to be able to talk to you after win, after everything that's happened over the last couple weeks, after, of course, this week of tumult, firing of Josh McDaniels, firing of Dave Ziegler, the changeover, the stories we've heard since then with the players and everybody walking on eggshells. No longer. They came out loose. They came out having fun, and it showed. And we are now going to go out to Allegiant Stadium, and we're going to bring in my good friend Murf from Raiders Fan Radio. As you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see we're going to bring him in here. Yes.
Let's freaking go, Scott.
All the fans celebrating the parking lot with Murf after the game. You can see the stadium there behind him. Do not complain about the audio. He's at a tailgate at the stadium. So if it's a little loud, so be it. But hey, the Raiders win, and everybody's happy with that. Murf, I'll tell you what, man. I want to start with this first. Of course, we're going to get into the game. That's what we're going to talk about. But talk me through, we're going to get into the Biletnikoff stuff and what you guys did there at Crowd Fest later. But I want to talk about just being in Las Vegas this week, and especially going in today for game day. Talk about the difference in the mood, the feeling amongst Raider Nation as you strolled up to the stadium today and started to hang out with everybody before the game.
Antonio Pierce said it, and again, I apologize, Raider Nation, for the audio. Antonio Pierce said it, that he's a Raider. And I think it takes a special person. It takes a special guy to coach this football team. That's something, as a 50-year-old Raider fan, I'm finally realizing that it takes someone very unique and very special to coach this football team. And in one game, we were all rooting for him, clearly. But in one game, the man has started to turn this team around, and we had a statement win today. And you ask about the vibe, you ask about the feeling. Look, this is never going to be Oakland again. Oakland was its own thing. It was very unique, but this was a slice of Oakland. And shout out Fabricator Gill and the IE. This freaking tailgate was so badass. We had an amazing time today. It was, just the energy and the vibe that's been brought back to Raider Nation because of Antonio Pierce. And let alone once you get inside the stadium, it's absolutely off the freaking chain. Raider Nation is fired up. Look, we're 4-5 and playoffs? I don't know. Yeah, how about that? Like, what an amazing way to turn this freaking thing around. And we'll get into it. But Trey Tucker, Hunter Renfro, Aiden O'Connell, Josh Jacobs, where's this freaking team been? Well, I tell you where they've been. They've been in Josh McDaniels' pocket, and finally they've been freaking released. And these guys are just. Football's a tough thing because you can't thrive exclusively on emotion. But, man, for this week, we definitely have, and I think it's enough to continue them on for the rest of the year, Scott. This is freaking awesome. This has been the most fun since the Raiders beat the Chargers to make the freaking playoffs. Bring it back to the same tailgate a couple years ago when they freaking did that. This was awesome. Shout out to me, Dave. What's up, brother? Sorry, Jeff. Sorry.
All good. All good. Hey, listen,
all over the place. Everybody's winning. It's so fun.
Everybody's there. Everybody's having fun, and that's a good thing. And Murf, that's the thing I'll tell you. I was impressed by the team coming out like they did. They came out fast. Now, we've seen them under Josh McDaniels with the scripted plays come out and have a good time, at least to start a game, and then they would fall into kind of this lull. Today they came out, and I just noticed one thing right from the get-go, and that was they gave the ball to Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs, unfortunately, at the end of the game, he went under 100 yards. He was over 100 yards there, had a great game. It was the Josh Jacobs that we saw last year. And you know what? It goes to say, and I know it's easy to pick on the guy who got fired, right? But the reality is, Antonio Pierce came out with a game plan and said, you know what? I'm going to give it to my best player. I'm going to give it to Josh Jacobs. He's going to set the pace. And, oh, by the way, Murf, he's going to take the pressure off my rookie quarterback to start this game, and that worked perfectly.
What a concept, man. Like, put your best players in position to be successful. Like, set up your young man to be successful. Young man being Aiden O'Connell. And he not only – so what did we see once the pressure was, like you mentioned, relieved from him? He started throwing dimes, man. But it wasn't the game wasn't dependent on him throwing dimes. The game was dependent on the collective, and that's what Raider Nation is all about. It's what the Raiders are all about. It's a collective good and the amazing play on the field. And I wish I had a better breakdown of like the specifics of like routes and their play calling and all that. All we saw, Jeff and Michelle and Valerie and Lamont, we're running, Chris, we're running around going crazy, going ape shit because it was like good play after good play after good play. And it's like, wow, like we have command of this game. What a concept. Score 30 points. Like what we had 21, 24 in the first half alone. Like that idea, Scott. I mean, talk about flipping this thing around, and it was an amazing thing to be part of. And hell yeah, and so thankful to be here with Raider Nation. I'm telling you, this is bananas, man. This is so good. It's an out of conference freaking like home game, and here we are. We're 4-5, and everyone's completely fired up. But to go back full circle, it's 100% due to Antonio Pierce. The guy gets it. He knows how to set these guys up to be successful. He's a Raider. He's brought energy back to this freaking football team. And I would say this, I'm going to step out on a limb. It's an energy we haven't had since, I don't know, Gruden 1.0. That's the last time we saw this kind of fire from a freaking Raider coach, and to bring this out of the fans, it's been absolutely spectacular. And I could be a bigger fan of Antonio Pierce. And then, oh yeah, by the way, he did it against his former football team. Let's go.
You got to like that. And not only that, but then you look at, again, how they used their pieces, how they came out and they fired on all cylinders. And if you look at the Raiders on offense tonight, remember, this is a team that could not score. It scores 30 points tonight. I know some people were like, well, they didn't do as well in the second half. They didn't need to. They scored when they had to. They had 2 field goals. Actually, if they had a first down before those, but they were called back due to penalties. So, that's the best case scenario out of those situations. But you look at what they were able to do outside of a couple key penalties. The other key here was you got a rookie quarterback, you got a new play caller, and guess what, Murph? No turnovers. But they created 2 takeaways against the Giants, and they had 8 sacks. 8 sacks. They have not done that in 13 years. Since 2010 was the last time the Raiders had that many sacks. Max Crosby with 3, surprise. Tyree Wilson even had 1. So you look at what this team was doing. The defense especially, we'll talk about the offense a little bit too, but the defense, you go back, they gave up 2 touchdowns, including 1 late to Detroit, and today they give up 1. That's 3 touchdowns in 2 games. This defense, not perfect, but it's certainly playing so well that now the offense, a little bit of pressure off. They came out light today. You could feel the lightness. They were loose, and they went out and scored. So you can see how the difference in environment has changed everything.
Absolutely. Can I call him opportunistic? This defense is so opportunistic. And shout out Amik Robertson. That's a guy we've been rooting for from day one coming out of Louisiana Tech. He had tears in his eyes when the Raiders drafted him. And dude is such a freaking dog. And undersized, but freaking a baller. And we rooted for him so much so because he's one of the... Oh my God! But anyway, shout out to Nick Robertson on that huge catch, man, on that huge interception. And this is like a defense is freaking going out, man. It is so freaking fun. It's so exciting. I can't wait. When we get close to the end of the segment, I'm going to jump down here, and Raider Nation is going to jump around us, Scott. Because I'm telling you, people are lit, and that defense is what set it off for us this week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And like I said, too, you could just tell this team was playing loose and it was playing free. And, going back to the week with all the videos about playing basketball in the locker room, about Hunter Renfro's comments about not walking on eggshells, all that stuff, it's amazing. And I posted during the game, Murph, I said, listen, don't ever estimate in life or in business or in sports that the removal of a negative in the environment, when you remove the negative out of the environment, it's amazing how people can feel free to do better. I'm not crowning the Raiders AFC champions yet. I'm just saying you could tell by the way they performed that they wanted to be there, that they believed in one another, and that the direction they were going. And to your point about Antonio Pierce, that was a big one. How about the stadium today? Tell me a little bit about inside. Everybody's always worried about visiting fans. We saw some Giants fans, but it sounded loud.
It was wild. There was probably, I don't know, what do you think, maybe 30% Giants fans in there.
Yeah.
And I give Giants fans credit. And so we've been to a lot of home games and met up with a lot of visiting fans. And the Giants fans were pretty cool. Like, they were cool. They were good-hearted. They were very interactive with the rest of us. But you know what? When your defense plays the way that it does and you start scoring points early, whoop, yeah, you know what I mean? Everybody gets real quiet, real fast, and so the Giants fans didn't have a ton to say. But I got to say, I was expecting a little bit bigger of a turnout, frankly. But I think the Antonio Pierce effect. Look, I don't want to overblow it and completely overstate it, but when you have that kind of an energy from the get-go, from your new head coach, it brings Raider Nation out. This is what we vibe with this. We love a guy like that. We were so thankful to be at the Blendicott Foundation dinner on Friday night, and we got a chance to meet Coach Pierce, and then we had a chance to hear him speak to the group. And it's infectious. His energy is amazing. And he is a freaking Raider. And that's what energizes this damn fan base. And so, so guess what, Giants fans? There aren't a shit ton of tickets left to be had because Raider Nation is freaking coming out because we're fired up, man.
Well, and that's great. And you know what? Who knows? Who knows with Antonio Pierce? Like you said, every big journey starts with a step, and maybe he'll do it. Maybe he'll put it together. Maybe his audition for the job will get him the job, and this team will respond to him long term, and we'll see what happens. It's a little early for that, but the start clearly is exactly what this team needed. Is exactly what the fan base needed. So that's very exciting. Murph, we're going to take a quick break. Can I hold you there? You got a few more minutes?
Yeah, hold me here. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to roll on with the Silver and Black Today post-game show. Raiders beat the Giants 30-6. Murf from Raiders Fan Radio joins us from the parking lot of Allegiant Stadium. The tailgate is still going after the game. Yes, Raider fans like their wins, and Raider Nation is having fun in Las Vegas right now. You're watching Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey original podcast. If you don't already subscribe, please do so on the audio side. And also, if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for the great chat. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell. We'll be back with Murf in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back with the live post-game reaction show. Scott Gulbransen back with you here on Silver and Black Today. And joining me is our good friend Murf from Raiders Fan Radio. He's out at Allegiant Stadium, and you will hear the noises when I turn his microphone on. You can see everybody out there still having fun, enjoying the win on this beautiful Sunday evening in the Mojave Desert in Las Vegas, Nevada. Murf, we were talking about before we went to the break about that lightness, about the offense, how they came out and they looked fun. Aiden O'Connell, let me tell you something. I mean, you look at his numbers on the day, it's not like C.J. Stroud. I don't know if you heard of what C.J. Stroud did today, but if you saw that, if you saw that, that's not the kind of day he had, but he didn't need to have it. Aidan O'Connell, 16 of 25 for 209 yards, a 90 QB rating, which is totally fine. And the thing that impressed me most about him was the fact that he did not turn the ball over again, right? And to me, the showed Perez and Mark Sanchez on the broadcast really had a lot of good things to say about him, talking about his composure, talking about his reads, the technical side of things, being able to read the field. Talk about that too. The fans and their support of Aiden O'Connell. Look, he's a fourth-round rookie. We don't know what he's going to be, but he does give the Raiders the best chance. It proved it again because he moved the offense, and those guys all rally around him, Murph.
Yeah, and he was all he had to be. And that's the thing that we question so much about the way the Josh McDaniels led this offense. Like, why was he put in positions in the Chargers?
Oh, we lost Murph. Murph sounds like he's underwater. We lost your microphone for some reason. We could barely hear you. but we'll see. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. No worries. We'll come back to him. But Aiden O'Connell again. That's the thing. I saw Mark Sanchez really searching for was the words to explain that, and I think from a layman's perspective, it was he's just relaxed. He's not shaken. It doesn't mean he doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that he might get rattled here and there. Every quarterback does. But from the standpoint of being a rookie, being out there and seeing what he's able to do, it boggles my mind, and I'm not here to bring up the former coach, right? Josh McDaniels is gone. We know how bad it was, but I'm not going to relive all of that. But what I can tell you is, wait, Murph back here. We got you back, Murph? No, not yet. Wait, let's see. There we go. Now we got you. Now we got you. We can't. Hey, Murph, we're showing. Hey, Murph, we can't. The microphone's not picking you up. We can see you. Yes, we can see you. So I'm gonna let you go, brother. There you go. Listen to the fans out there. All right, there you go. All right, so there's Murph. Sorry we couldn't keep him longer, but hey, he's out in the parking lot. He's having fun, and we certainly appreciate him checking in from there. And we didn't give. We'll have him come on and talk about what they did. As you know, the One Nation Foundation, the donations, the super chats we take here during the audio. Yeah, exactly, Laker Eric. He's in the middle of the parking lot. Things, when you're on cell networks and he's not in his studio. Believe me, it makes a big difference, and you got a lot of people around there screaming. So what we'll do the rest of the time is talk about this, but I want to also mention, again, go back to, look, this is all the same phase. This offense is no different than it was week one, except for quarterback. Michael, we got it. Murph's gone now, but different quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. It's remarkable to me that at any point, the coaching staff, and clearly it wasn't the coaching staff, it was the coach, didn't believe that Aiden O'Connell gave them the best chance to win. That doesn't mean, again, that he's not going to make mistakes. He will. He had a couple passes tonight that were errant. Luckily, there was no interceptions, no turnovers, no fumbles. They protected him pretty well over the entire game. And when he needed to make throws, he made throws. The throw to Trey Tucker for 50 yards, the longest play of the year, was a beautiful one. Now, O'Connell, I'm sure if he told you, and we'll see after the press conference, I'm sure he would tell you he overthrew it a little bit. It's a little off, right? But Trey Tucker, because of his speed, was able to catch up with that and haul it in. So, but he doesn't have that super arm. It's not a super cannon. Okay, it's a cannon. It's the Irish cannon, but it's not the super cannon. But he does have enough. He has enough to stretch the field and to get downfield. So with that, I think that if you look at the situation, he gives you the best chance. Jimmy Garoppolo can't throw the ball. We didn't see any of that. Brian Hoyer can't throw the ball. So that was roster mismanagement. So you have Aiden O'Connell in there, and you see what happens. They go to the run early. This team, and if you listen to this show, Mo and I have been saying since summertime, right? You have to, with this offense, and however they're going to change up the Josh McDaniels offense, we'll see. We saw a little bit of it tonight. Is you have to run the ball, and you have to run the ball effectively. Now, the problems with the offensive line, we saw some of those at the end of the game. It seemed to be they laid off a little bit, and we saw some of the rushes coming through and them making some progress there. But overall, you got to look at what they were able to do with Josh Jacobs tonight. Josh Jacobs looked like Josh Jacobs. They also, I like the play design. The play design tonight, or today, depending where you are, was to get Josh Jacobs into space, get him outside at times. You saw some of those tosses. You saw some of him being able to run. You saw some quick passes. You also saw some slant passes, the big one to Jacoby Myers in the first half. You saw some things that we were all sitting there and saying throughout the course of the first several weeks, where is that stuff? Where's the 2 tight end sets? In fact, tonight they used a 3 tight end set, okay, for a short pass, the one that Michael Mayer did the moonwalk on. Those types of plays are in that playbook, but that coach wasn't using them. So we see them open up the offense with Josh Jacobs, and then we see them use the weapons that they have. Hunter Renfrow, welcome back to the real world. Hunter Renfrow, welcome back to the world of some receptions. You saw Aiden O'Connell in his first 8 passes go to 5 different receivers. He spread the ball around. That also tells you he saw the field nicely. He was looking at the progressions, and they went through this several times over the broadcast, and he could see the routes, right? He could see the routes. Both the other quarterbacks could not see these routes because often they would leave these routes open. So you look at that and you say, okay, here's where you go. But I do think that you look at all of these situations and you see that the Raiders should have been better than they are. Now, they sit there at 4-5, but from the offense perspective, so bad in the offense, and you have to wonder if they played like they did tonight against Pittsburgh, if they played like they did tonight against Chicago, where would they be? I mean, it's a fair question to ask, and I think that look, you can't go back and change things. And by the way, this is my only word of caution. Okay, so the one wet blanket I'll throw today is today was great. Great opportunity, great performance overall. Sure, there was some things they got to fix. That's every game. But when you look at this, the key is you got to be consistent. So next week, they got to play a New York Jets team with a very good defense. So we'll see how they do there. And then you got two brutal ones in a row. You got Miami, and then you have Kansas City, okay, who played each other today with Kansas City winning that one. Kansas City's offense is still not right, but their defense is much better, and they're just overall tough to beat. So you look at that. The Raiders have a tough 3 weeks before they get to the bye. Next week against the Jets, I think, is a very pivotal game. It's a good team, and they're going to have to be consistent like they were today. So they got to improve over today. The way they played today will not be good enough against the Jets, and the way they play against the Jets will not be good enough against the Dolphins. But you have hope, right? You finally have some hope that this team is gelling. They're preparing the right way. They feel invigorated, and that can go a long way. It goes back to the point that they're going to have to be consistent. And if they're consistent, then who knows what can happen? Look, I'm not saying this team's going to make the playoffs, but I will say they can get better. They can help Antonio Pierce get the job full time if he wants it and if Mark Davis is open to that. Now, they have to do a search. That's under NFL rules, by the way. You can't just name him at the end of the season. He has to go through a whole search. But if he does well and this team performs well and progresses, because remember, guys, and I see you guys all in the chat. It's good to see everybody. But remember, I've always said, and we've always said here on this show, that you wanted to see progress with this team. You know, it wasn't that you lose some of these games to better teams or that you make mistakes because you got a rookie at a quarterback. It's simply, are you progressing? The defense, as I mentioned earlier, defense has given up 3 touchdowns in 2 games. Okay, now the Giants are terrible, but obviously the Lions are a good team. They scored one of their touchdowns late after the Raiders' defense had been on the field the entire game. So I'll give them that. But 3 touchdowns in 2 games. That's remarkable for a defense that's starting to come along and starting to kind of find itself. Yes, it's got holes, right? It's got some injuries too, but it's playing well. Patrick Graham has that unit going well. 8 sacks tonight. I mentioned earlier, the last time the Raiders had 8 sacks was in 2010, 13 years ago. So that shows you, okay, so maybe they're making steps. You just got to take one game at a time. I said this even before the Lions game, and people were making fun of me. I know Josh McDaniels was there at the time. But you never know in this league. It's a league of attrition. Look what happens with the 49ers, 5-0. Now they've lost 3 straight. Questions about Brock Purdy, right? You see Miami now. Miami, I still think is going to be a good team. They're not all the way there yet. But look what's happened to them over the last few weeks, right? All that huge offense has kind of been, where is it? Because they got hit in the mouth a couple times. So the Raiders can do that. If the Raiders can take on the type of attitude and culture that Antonio Pierce talked to us about in his introductory press conference, then anything can happen. Yes, Raider 27. This is what progress looks like. And that's the thing. It's a week-to-week league, so you just want to see your team get better. I know all of you are realistic, and I know you'd love for your team to get to the playoffs, and you'd love for your team to get to the Super Bowl, especially this year. It's in Las Vegas. But you just want to see that your team is getting better. When it was getting worse every week, that was hard. It was hard to take. It was hard to cover from my perspective, just because what do you want to do? Come on here and just talk about how terrible things are? No, you don't. You rather enjoy a win and talk about some good performances. And again, you got to talk about, when you talk about good performances for the Raiders, you have to talk about Max Crosby, right? Max Crosby today, for those of you on the West Coast, 3 sacks out of those Raider 8 sacks. You look at that from a defensive standpoint. Who else had a sack? Let's see. We had Crosby with 3, Trayvon Morig with 1, Malcolm Kuntz with 1, Butler with 1, and also Bilal Nichols with 1. And Tyree Wilson had a half a sack. The rookie had a half a sack. So, again, it was a performance. Of course, you had Amik Robertson and Nate Hobbs with the interceptions. I went over the offensive statistics earlier as well. So Josh Jacobs, 26 carries, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3.8 average. He had a 4.1 average before the last running play where he got brought back. He actually had over 100 yards rushing, which is good. The Raiders needed that. But with the loss of yardage on the last play that he ran in, he went under 100 and went under 4 yards. But still, very good progress for him as well. And then, of course, Trey Tucker had 2 catches, 52 yards. Jacoby Myers, 2 for 38. Devontae Adams, 4 for 34. Hunter Renfrow, 2 for 32. Abdullah, 2 for 17. So, again, the ball was spread around a lot. You look at offensive plays, the Raiders had 59. You'd like to see that a little higher. They had 209 yards passing, 4 penalties for 30 yards. The Giants had 3 penalties for 8 yards. Go figure. So it was a pretty low penalty game, which is nice on both sides. Giants with the 2 turnovers. And that's the thing I said earlier. The Raiders protected the ball today, and you have to appreciate that from the rookie because that's been part of the problem. And somebody said on X.com tonight, they said something like, I hope Aiden O'Connell goes into the press conference and say, clearly it's not preseason. So, but he did protect the ball. And that's always good. As I see my cousin Medina in the chat. Hey, Cuzzy, how you doing? But anyway, this was something that I think everybody really wanted to see, the fact that you made progress. Now, we could look at some of the things that weren't done, and we'll do that in the last segment because I think there's some good points here, and that is, again, with progress, you have to also recognize what weren't you able to do. Second half, the Raiders, if you look at their possessions, the Raiders did not have a touchdown in the second half, clearly, as the score would tell you. But you look at possessions, and I'm going over there to take it out, but the Raiders' possessions in the second half, field goal, 2 punts, 3 punts, 2 field goals, 3 punts, and gave it up on downs, which was really the end of the game. That's what they just gave the ball back instead of kicking a field goal. So they could have had 3 field goals technically, but clearly they did not move the ball well in the second half. Sometimes you see that with a big lead in a team, but I think with a team like this, I think Antonio Pierce probably pulled them back a little bit. And I know a lot of you were saying, no, you got to put your foot on the gas. And I agree with that. But the lead that they had and the fact that the Giants had DeVito at quarterback, who didn't do pretty bad. I mean, he did pretty bad at first, and then he kind of turned it on a little better towards the end of the game when the Raiders were playing him a little more soft. But, you look at that situation. I think he didn't want to put Aiden O'Connell in a position where he was going to make mistakes and take away from what is a really big confidence-building performance. And I think that goes for the Raiders. And I know some of you will disagree with me out there, and I'm not saying they overtly did it. I think towards the end of the game they did. Got a lot more conservative with the play calling. So it's progression, right? So now against the Jets, you're not going to be able to do that. With the Jets can stop you on defense significantly. Their offense is hit and miss, obviously, as you know, with Wilson. But I do think that the Raiders, much needed game for them to get right in the head. They got right in the head in the locker room and off the field with the change in personnel and coach and GM. And now they need to get right on the field. And they took a step towards that, right? It's a work in progress. That's the way I'll say it. It's a work in progress, as you guys know. And I think that is important, and they will get there. How far they go, we don't know yet. But I do think that those types of situations, because the Raiders have not had a win where they built a big lead and held it, right? So that's good. They built big leads and blown them under Josh McDaniels. Now they built one and they kept that margin. It never got so close that you were concerned, including down the end. So they took off a little bit of the edge and they cruised to the win. So that was good. I'm going to take our final break here when we come back. Let's talk about some of the things the Raiders need to work on coming out of this game, some of the observations I had. I also want to see some of your observations. So all of you in the YouTube chat, if you're on Facebook chat or you're on Twitter, x.com, whatever you want to call it, let us know there, and we will get to those questions here in a minute. You are listening to and watching the postgame edition of Silver and Black today. I'm Scott Gulbransen, your host. I will be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the home stretch here on Silver and Black today. The post-game edition. Raiders 30-6 winners. 30 points. The team that struggled to score 20 scored 30. Might have been more if they could have moved the ball better in the second half, but that's okay. Doesn't matter. A win is a win. This was a get-right win for the Raiders, especially mentally. Build some of that confidence in your rookie quarterback. Build some of that confidence in your veterans who were feeling displaced by the former coach. And so we're back. I'm going to go check out the chat now. Arturo, Murf was here earlier. He was in the parking lot of Allegiant. The sound was terrible. He stayed with us as long as he could before the equipment started breaking down and cell signals started going. So you missed that portion. If you want to watch what Murf had to say, just rewind after we're done here and you'll be able to see him. And we'll talk to him about it next week. But I'm in here too, and I'm seeing, let's see, Michael Turner, too conservative in the second half. Yeah, but you know what? Again, as I said, some people will never be happy, Michael. I think you might be one of those, and that's totally fine. Not passing judgment, but if I think Antonio Pierce didn't want to be overly aggressive. They were aggressive to start the game out, which I thought was good. You have a rookie quarterback. You're trying to regain the this team lost its confidence. That's the other thing. And that bled over onto the field. Okay. So getting them back out there, in my view, they weren't too conservative. I think they had miscues in the second half, some execution problems in the second half. So even as they were executing more conservatively, to answer your question or your statement, I don't think that was the problem. I think the problem was they missed on plays. They had some key penalties, as you know, when they kicked that field goal in the third quarter, after they had a nice first down by Trey Tucker there on a nice run. Then they had to settle for the field goal. So I think overall, to me, I rather have them be a little more conservative. You don't always have to be aggressive. I get it. You won 30-6. 30-6. Yes, I know you want to win 50-6. I get it. But I think in this one, it was a good opportunity there. Also, Antonio Pierce, I think towards the fourth quarter, when the game was clearly over and the Giants were not going to mount any sort of comeback, Antonio Pierce did the coachly thing. He kind of just took the foot off the pedal, I should say. And so you can disagree with that, but I don't think it was a bad thing. Ariel, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Sustained drives, wearing out their defense while keeping our defense fresh. Yes, the Raiders did better at time of possession. The Giants actually held the ball longer. That's still an issue. I think that's one of the issues we should talk about, which is the Raiders. They when they do sustain drives, great, as they did in the first half. Second half, they didn't. Second half, there were shorter drives. You can be more conservative if you run the ball effectively or through short passing game. They just kind of started to fall off on the second half. So again, we have a situation where they just got to get better week over week. This was a vast improvement. I mean, this is the worst offense in the NFL, one of the worst, bottom two in the NFL. And they came out today, they scored 30 points, and they showed a lot more heart and a lot better execution overall. It wasn't perfect, though. Again, we saw the offensive line break down towards the end of the game. Why, I'm not sure. Sure, the Giants knew the Raiders were going to try to run the ball and keep the clock moving to get the win and get out of there. But there are still some key there, too. We saw some penalties. We saw some receivers drop balls. The normal stuff. It happens. But I do think that the Giants' defense, which is not terrible up front. I mean, they're pretty good up front, actually. They got some injuries there, too. But they're pretty good up front. And Thibodeau was shut out today. I mean, the Raiders did a great job on him. And so I think from that perspective, you got to like what the offensive line did. But again, you also have to look at it from the progression standpoint. You look at Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell did well overall. He had a couple throws. One was dangerously close to being picked off. That was, I think, his biggest mistake in the first half. In the second half, he had another one to Hunter Renfrow, which was a quick pass that was read quickly. And luckily, he fired the ball in fast. If he would have taken a little bit off that, it might have been picked six the other way. So again, he's got things he's got to work on too. But his composure, his opportunities when he did have receivers open, he threw the ball. I think it was the one to Jacoby Myers. He threw the ball so hard to Jacoby Myers on that little slant coming off the left side that he couldn't hold on to it, and it really did. Mark Sanchez pointed that. He said, "Hey, a pass like that, you got to throw it in his body. You got to take a little bit off. You don't have to throw every pass like it's a bullet." And I think that that's something you learn as a young quarterback. especially in your first real start as the named starter. And I know he was a starter in a Charger game, but that was in an injury capacity. This is the first start as a full-time starter in the NFL. So I get it, a little bit of nerves there. And if that's the worst he does in the nerves category, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So other than that, it was a situation where I think that they're in a good spot here to start to put some things together. If they can host the Jets and win that game against a pretty good, a really good defense, I think, and do what they did tonight. I'm not saying they got to win by 20, 24 points, but if they can do it again and win a game, I don't care if it's close or not, but if they come out and they look fresh and they're playing better complementary football, which is what we saw tonight, then they go into those really two difficult games with more confidence. By the time you get to the Dolphins in 2 weeks, you got to have more confidence. So this will go a long way for them. A win is a win. The question now becomes, can you sustain this new attitude? Right? Now, they did after the whole Gruden mess in 2021, when the Henry Ruggs situation, all that stuff happened. They did a great job of continuing that. Like, hey, it's us against the world. Hey, we're together now. They banded under Rich Bisaccia, and they ended up getting into the playoffs, right? And so can they do that this year? It's a little early to tell, but I do know that it's all going to come down to consistency, because one great win where everybody feels good and the fans feel good and the stadium's full of more Raider fans than Giants fans, that's all awesome. But it doesn't mean anything if next week they come out and they look like the Raiders from 3 weeks ago. Now, I don't think that'll happen. Could they get beat? Yes. How they lose, though, will be different. I know that you don't ever want to lose because you're Raiders fans, so you don't want your team to lose, okay? But how you lose matters, too, because if you lose like they were losing before, then you got a problem. If you don't, if you come out and you just lose a hard-fought football game, it happens all the time, then great. And I think that that's where my head is with this team. I think now that they may get beat by teams that are better than them, but I don't think they get beat like they've been getting beat, because I think they want to play for this guy. They want to play for Antonio Pierce. They want to play for each other. I think when you're in that negative environment, and I'm looking in here in the chat, when you play in that negative environment, it permeates everything. It permeates your play. It permeates your attitude towards your teammates. It permeates your attitude to the coaches, to the fan, everything, because nothing is going well and you just don't feel it. And I don't know if any of you worked in a toxic environment, and that's what I call it, a toxic environment. It's tough, man. It's tough. Like, you don't want to get out of bed in the morning and go into work. It's just awful. That's gone. And you saw the result tonight. So I think that that's something that erasing that negativity, getting the negative influence out of the locker room. And it happens with players too. Sometimes teams have negative players. You guys probably follow other sports where you've had fans like that. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it just kills it. It's like a cancer when you have overly negative, toxic people. And especially what the stories we've heard now about Josh McDaniels and his spitefulness after the team meeting, which is supposed to clear the air. So, but that's all past. So now the Raiders get to move forward, and the question becomes, can they sustain this? And I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say on that in the chat. But overall, like what the Raiders did tonight, if you look at their choice from a play calling perspective on offense, tell me what you guys liked in the YouTube chat, because the motion was there. I saw a lot of different sets. There was a lot of variety that I hadn't seen before. And to me, that was a big deal because the Raiders were able to keep the Giants off kilter, right? They were to keep them questioning what was going on. And they had good protection early on. So Josh Jacobs could run the ball. He had 70 yards or 60 some yards in the first half. And so that was big. And I'm going to bring up the numbers here and look at these overall. And I'll actually see if I can share these with you guys. Well, you don't need to see it on the screen. But anyway, you look at the team stats overall, some of the things that you look at when you look at the Raiders. Third down efficiency, not great for the Raiders tonight. They were 5 of 14 for 36%. You'd like to see that, you'd like to see it over 50% for certain, but even better than that. Good news, in the red zone, they were 3 of 4. So 75% in the red zone. Goal to go, they were 2 of 2. Of course, Josh Jacobs, both touchdowns. So you got to like that. Those are good numbers when you're looking at team numbers. And again, no turnovers. The 3 touchdowns, of course, were all rushing. But if you look at the situation with the passing game, better, right? Better. We saw positive movement with Aiden O'Connell. And there's no question that he should be the quarterback moving forward, and he is, as they've mentioned. So it's all good. And I appreciate everybody being with us tonight. And I know we lost Murf early because of the technical issues out there at Allegiant Stadium, but it's all good. But I'm encouraged for the Raiders. I'm encouraged by the attitude. I'm encouraged by the performance tonight. Now, again, it's just going to be, can you sustain it, and can you bring this culture to life over a period of time? So we'll see. But we're going to get into it for the rest of the week as well. We will be back on Tuesday, Mo and I, and we'll talk a little more in depth on the X's and O's on this. But I just wanted to get you guys a quick live show, and talk about tonight's wins and the fact that Hunter Renfrow can finally take off the Where's Waldo costume, because apparently Antonio Pierce knows where he is and wanted to use him tonight, which is good. And the same thing can go for Josh Jacobs. I mean, there's so many great superlatives from tonight. The offensive line, no sacks given up tonight. So the rookie quarterback, he had pressure a couple times, but really nothing to speak of. So good job on them. That shows you, especially over the last couple of weeks, shows you how much they are rallying behind this kid at quarterback. It's big. Then you had Josh Jacobs. Didn't he seem like he had a little more pep in his step? Like that first step seemed to be just like the Josh Jacobs we saw last year. And again, I talked about Hunter Renfrow. I know Devontae Adams should get the ball more, but I'm pretty sure that when I hear Devontae Adams' comments from after the game, he's going to say, it doesn't matter. I just felt good. We were moving the ball. We were going down the field. So Aiden O'Connell will find that rhythm with him. But getting everybody involved in the offense had to feel good for all that. And then the defense, great night. 2 turnovers on defense, takeaways on defense. Also, you had the 8 sacks. 8 sacks. I can't believe 8 sacks. It's hard to believe, isn't it? You should feel good about it. You could stroll into work tomorrow holding your head high and having fun talking about the Raiders for once, which would be good. It wasn't an ugly win. It was a beautiful win, if I'm a fan, because there was never any question who was going to win the game, right? Once you got out of the first quarter. So that was a good thing. But we'll see if they can sustain it. There's a lot to talk about. We'll get into the more technical stuff. Just wanted to get our voice of the fan with Murf, who obviously is knee deep in Raider Nation tailgate at Allegiant Stadium. So thanks to him, for being with us. And thanks to you guys all for being with us here on the special live edition, the game reaction show from Silver and Black today. We will be back Tuesday again. So please make sure you join us on Tuesday. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Also, do me a favor. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and also hit the notifications bell so that you know whenever we're live or whenever we have a new video. So we appreciate that. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate you guys being with us. And thank you so much for your support. For our producer, Mike Robier, for Murf, I am Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black Today, the post-game edition. Raider Nation, enjoy your win, enjoy your Sunday night, and enjoy your victory week as we get geared up for the Raiders to face the Jets next week. Once again, Raiders beat the Giants 30-6, a dominating performance on defense and a very good performance on offense for once for the Las Vegas Raiders. Until next time, we'll talk to you later, everybody.